So, 10 tips for dining here in Japan. I'm making this video basically because I've had a few friends come down to Japan and not really realize the etiquette here in Japan, and they've kind of made a few stuff ups. So I was thinking of, I should make this video just to give them a little bit of awareness about, you know, what to do in Japan, and for other friends to actually realize do's and don'ts in this country. It's a top 10 things that I can think of because those are issues that I went through too as well, and it was a bit of a shock to learn it because in Western countries it's so different, and you don't realize till you get here uh, how much of a shock it is. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, number one, number one, you pay after. Now, unless you are at a fast food restaurant where obviously you pay from the get-go, most standard Japanese restaurants, you do pay after. The waitress or the waiter will give you a bill and leave it on your table, and you are meant to bring that to the counter and then pay for it there. And that's the general rule. So, and usually, fortunately, you can usually separate the bill too, but be aware, credit card is not accepted in many places unless you're at a brand place. So make sure that you always have cash on you. Number two, just sit yourself down. This one is a little bit of more of a tip to make it easier for you, but in most Japanese style restaurants, so izakayas for example, uh, you'll be expected to sit down, and you do usually leave your shoes in a locker. So just make sure you wear shoes that are easy to take off and easy to put on. Otherwise, you'll be spending a lot of time awkwardly at the entrance tying on the shoes, which can be a bit awkward because some places have toilets that are kind of outside of the eating area, so you kind of need to like put your shoes back on and then hop to the toilets and then come back in. It makes it a bit of a fuss. So just save yourself the trouble and always bring shoes that are easy to wear when you're in Japan. Number three is a big one, and that is do not, do not, do not, unless you're in izakaya or a barbecue place, yakiniku place, do not share your meals. This is a big one because I've had some friends fall into the trap where they will purchase every little thing and then just to try it, as in we do in Western culture, and then just share the meals. And they've had times when some of the staff have actually screamed at them to not do that, and a lot of my friends just were not sure about that. So the reason why for that, and this is what I've gathered, so if you're Japanese and you can correct me on this, please offer me uh, the truth with this one. But essentially, a meal has been made for you. The staff, the chefs, the manager, they've all made effort to make this amazing grand meal for you. And for you to kind of pick and choose is, first of all, pretty cheap in their eyes, and also really disrespectful because uh, with a lot of Japanese meals, it's about the balance and how everything matches together. There is basically a method of eating it, and there is beauty of eating it. So to just change that completely destroys the beauty of Japanese cuisine. So it is very important that you don't share meals because there's a good chance that you will get screamed at. So simple as that. If you are looking to have a foodie adventure in Japan, my tip for you is stay here for a while and make sure you get ready to eat a lot because this is just the way it's gonna work. Now, number four is do not tip, and this is, I guess, similar to the one before, where there is a cultural difference here, where unlike places in Western countries where tipping is kind of seen as a way of like, oh, I really do appreciate your meal. Tipping in Japan is not really accepted because, again, the value of the meal is expected into the price, into what the food is. So by you giving extra money is kind of looking petty, and again, it's losing face and it's showing off a little bit as well. If you are going to give money, you'd have to give it an envelope. But if you're in a dining situation, tipping is not necessary, and ultimately, it's easier for you because that means you save a little bit of extra money. So if you're considering tipping, just put it away and move on and enjoy your meal. Now, the next one, number 5. This one is a few things actually, but I've condensed it to once because this one requires a few like Asian cultural things, and the main one is don't stab your chopsticks into your rice. That's kind of seen as for funeral processions, and that you can apply to not just Japan but even all across East and Southeast Asia. That is just don't do that. Don't do that. It's just a symbol for bad luck, and there is a superstitious element of like, oh, you're wishing death onto yourself basically. So, you know, don't do that one. Just save yourself the trouble for that one there. I also want to add it in that, again, take off your shoes before you get to a traditional Japanese restaurant. Again, remember, make sure it's easy to take off and easy to put on. And on top of that too, always wait for the eldest to commence eating, because if you take a bite before the eldest does, you end up looking very greedy, and you will probably get a few stares from the rest of the people at your table. Now, let's go on to number 6. This is my favorite one because this is so different and so not expected, but alcohol in this country the culture around it is so different to Western countries, where, of course, if you're in a fine dining place, Japanese fine dining is called kaiseki ryori. Obviously, don't drink your heart out. Just, be modest. But in many other restaurants, granted, respecting your boundaries, it's kind of accepted that people just get extremely drunk, and even like you will see like co-workers going out together, including with the boss, and they will get extremely pummeled by the alcohol that they just end up going to a love hotel, a capsule, and just sleeping there for 3 hours before they rock up to work the next day. That is very normal, but at the same time, there is a little small thing to be aware about, and that is if you are the youngest in the group, you are expected to top up everyone's alcohol. So if you are the youngest, be very aware of your alcohol limit. Be very aware of where everyone is with the alcohol, and make sure you do tip up. And if you are getting tipped up, make sure you have a sip of the alcohol before they tip you up, because that way they top you up. That way it just looks like you're not being too greedy, and it's make sure you're being thankful for the top up. And hey, it's great fun after all anyways. My personal favorite actually. Now, number 7 is another really strange one to Western culture. This one is something my brother would probably hate, but it's okay to slurp in this country. It's so okay. This is in regards to like noodle meals, for example, so like soba, udon. It is okay to slurp your meal because it shows gratitude to the chef, and it shows that the meal is absolutely delicious. It is so normal to walk into a restaurant and just be greeted with the sound of that lip smacking sound, and it's just slurp and slurp and slurp and slurp. And if you don't like the sound, you better get used to it, or you just shouldn't come to Japan because it is everywhere. So you cannot escape it. Just gotta learn to deal with it. Now, let's get to number 8. We're nearly there. This is regarding oshibori, which is the towel you get at the start of a meal. In fact, even before you have a meal. It can be cold, it can be hot, depending on the season. But it's a towel that's used to clean your hands. Clean your hands, not your face, not your neck. That's actually quite offensive. Clean your hands. Now, from what I know, traditionally, I believe that it was only meant to be at the start of the meal and not really during or after the meal. But times are changing for what I've seen, and I do see even Japanese people using it throughout the meal. But yeah, don't really use it on your hands. Don't use it on your face. If you need to like clean your face or anything like that, just go to the restroom and just go freshen up there. But it's a nice little thing to have that, especially when you have a long day. You can like clean your hands and then be ready for your meal. It just gives a nice like fresh feeling, and I think that's something that I wish kind of like the rest of the world would do, because sometimes you just feel really gross, like going to a meal and then realizing your hands are completely dirty. But hey, that's what you gotta do. Now, number nine considers a really famous dish, Japanese dish, and that's regarding sushi and my personal favorite, sashimi. Essentially, there are certain aspects of the way of eating these kinds of foods, which really aren't followed in Western countries, and I think countries outside of Japan, really. But you're meant to eat the sushi in one bite, and you're not meant to mix the wasabi with the soy sauce. So if you're in a traditional place, try to avoid that, especially if you are in like a really rural area where they may not be used to foreigners. So the reason for that is because wasabi is usually already added into the sushi, so the taste is already meant to be there. Uh, and soy sauce is only meant to be used for particular dishes. Uh, Obviously, if you're in more metropolitan areas, they'll be used to it, and it's quite understandable. And everyone has their own taste, anyways. But there is a generally accepted rule that you have to be really careful about the way you eat sushi or sashimi. So, of course, this is for your own. This is for your own self, but generally the rule is eat it in one bite. Don't really mix wasabi and soy sauce. If you're going to use wasabi, you put it usually with sashimi, and you usually put it on the sashimi, and then you dip it into the soy sauce, and then you consume it. But those are small ones, because there is really a really strict culture with like eating those kinds of foods. So if you don't know, the best thing you can do is ask your sushi chef, and they will be happy to explain. And I think that it'll really encourage and motivate them anyway. So if worst comes to worst, there's no harm in asking the person that made it, and I think that's a really good idea. So we're into the last one, and the last one is just something that I think is really amazing, and I think that's something that it's it shows the respect in Japanese culture, and it's something that I really respect myself, and that is in regards to what you say. So you walk into a restaurant, and the first thing you will hear is somebody, in fact, a few people screaming, "Irashaimase!" And initially, you may think, "Oh, what do I do? How do I react?" Just walk in and sit down, and just say how many people you need, how many people are eating. You don't need to make a response to that. It literally means welcome. There is emphasis placed on the customer, so you don't need to respond to that. You don't need to bow to that. You just walk in and almost kind of like half ignore it, to be honest, but it's okay to bypass it. And then most people come to Japan know that before you have your meal, the food's there, you do say itadakimasu, which literally means thanks for whoever made this meal possible. But the one that a lot of people don't know is what you say afterwards, which is thanks for the meal, which is gochisousama deshita or gochisousama desu. And again, it does basically mean thanks for the meal. We really appreciate the meal. And those are like three phrases that you can use two phrases that you can use for when you're eating here in Japan. Now, again, I've noticed that it tends to be only at Japanese style places, so not really like fast food places or like cafes. It's mainly sticking to like traditional Japanese places, but it doesn't hurt to try. And ultimately, most Japanese people will be very responsive and really like happy that a foreigner or a tourist is able to say it because it's something that's so unique to Japanese culture. So I hope I've helped you with that. I hope that maybe you've learned something. Again, if you are Japanese and you're able to correct me on anything, please correct me because, I am myself Gakujin. So please let me know what you think. Really interested to hear what your experiences in Japan have been like if you've been here before or if you're really coming for the first time. You know, let me know what you're thinking and what you are expecting, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. But yeah, I'll see you around.